All right, all right. Here we go. Here we go. Welcome to another edition of Brothers-in-law. I'm Mike Bradley with my co-host Corey Taylor. We are both prior law enforcement officers, and we are here to give you some insight, some information. We got a good show lined up for you today. What's going on, Corey?
Hey, what's up, my brother? I can't
All right,
call it sit chilling, ready to get this on.
that's it. That's it. We got a couple of good little topics we're gonna discuss today. You know, we got one where you got where it's important. We'll discuss why it's important, why officers like to properly identify people for various reasons. And then we got another one, I'm sure, where you guys have seen where the pregnant lady was involved in, I don't want to say a pursuit, but it could easily be determined as a pursuit by an officer. We're going to talk about that because we understand a lot of people have been getting comments and advice about pulling over in a safe area when you see those red and blue lights behind you from a police officer. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe so that we can get this video out and share this with your friends and everything. And we'll get this going and get some good info out. I see you, Tone. I see you, Megan. Thanks for joining us. And feel free, you guys, ask some questions, give us your comments so we can check you guys out, answer your questions while we here on live. All right. And
Yeah,
if you missed this show live, you can always hit us up. It's on a recording too. So we all good.
we particularly like to hear from the ladies tonight. What are your thoughts on pulling over? And then we're going to give you what you really need to do from two former police officers, one being a city patrol officer, which is Mike, and myself. I was a state trooper, so I was up on the interstates. And then depending on where I was also in the inner cities. And we'll give you some tips of what you need to do and be cautious of, and what's the mindset of an officer when, for example, I'll share stories with you what happens, when you don't pull over. But it's very important. We don't want you to be afraid when you get pulled over. Uh, you know, let's just go ahead and get into it, Mike, because we're gonna go ahead and spill the beans and everything. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. This
All right.
actually, you want to set it up?
No, you can set it up. You can set it up.
Okay.
Whichever one you're doing first.
Well, I'll set the with this lady up here. We'll go ahead and knock that out. That's still fresh in my head. So this happened back on August 12th of this year in Florida, down in Florida. And young lady, she was speeding. All right, she was doing 75 in a 55-mile-an-hour speed zone. All right, here in Virginia, anything that's 25 or 20 miles over the posted speed limit is reckless driving. All right. Now, if she were here in Virginia, that's what I'd be looking at right now at 75 in a 55-mile-an-hour speed zone. Now, officer initiates a traffic stop. He turns his lights and sirens on. Right there, okay, we're already trying to process, all right, why are you speeding? And then, you then start slowing down. So for me, once I see that you start slowing down, you put your hazards on, all right, you're probably looking for somewhere to pull over. I get it. After a certain point, you don't pull over, and I don't care if your hazards on or not, more red flags start going off to me. All right, okay, cool, you got your hazards on, but why aren't you still stopping? You have plenty of places to stop, right? No matter if it's dark or not, you still stop. Let the officer tell you, hey, I'm going to move you to a safer area. I'm pretty confident a lot of officers would do that. Well, there's two reasons. Not only for the officer's safety, but for your safety too. We like being in well-lit areas as well. I always used to try to get somebody to a well-lit area. And it really depended on where we were on the highway or on the interstate. Certain stretches of the highways here, you're going. It's just going to be dark. There's no way around it. We're not going to drive 10, 15 miles down the road just to get to a lit area, right?
Now, see, when you say that, Corey, that's a good point. And I think that is where we both understand how people get advice about, especially females, about if you feel unsafe, keep going until you find a safe place to pull over. But keep in mind, folks, like Corey was saying, as an officer, when I pull you over, I am pre-planning where I want you to pull over. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Putting on your hazards is not a universal sign that, oh, I see you and I'm pulling over.
Right.
That's not a
Right.
universal sign, folks. But it's really a catch-22, Corey, because how far are you going to go down the road until you find a safe place? Is it 2 miles down the road? Is it 5 miles down the road? Is it 10 miles down the road? You see what I'm saying, Megan? You got to understand that at some point, like Corey was saying, as an officer, I'm going to think, okay, are they trying to find a lit place to pull over, or are they just not trying to stop? Is there something else going on here where they don't want to just pull over? Do they even know that I'm pulling them over? There's red flags. And not only that, how long do you expect the officer to drive behind you with those lights on before you decide to pull over? Like you said, Corey, once we pull you over, I always say it's best to pull right on over as soon as possible, because you don't know what kind of officer you're going to get. You don't know how that particular officer is going to perceive what you are doing. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So, like you said, Corey, pull right over immediately and then let the officer come up and tell you, okay, I'm going to move you. I want you to move down here, or I want you to move there. And then sometimes, Corey, like you said, especially on the interstate, sometimes it can be a long ways before you get to a well-lit area. That's why officers have spotlights, things like that, flashlights. We want to light you up just as much as you want to be in a lit place.
In a lit place, right. Now you're 100%. If now there's a lot of you that are new to the channel, and one of the very first videos Mike and I did last year was called "Let's Talk Policing," the do's and don'ts of policing. And that's one of the things we tell you. We actually break down the whole traffic stop for you, what to do. If I stop you on a portion of road that is not well lit, I'm going to move you, right? If the situation dictates that I can move you to a safer place that where you're safe and I'm safe. All right. Then before I move you, guess what I'm getting? I'm getting that ID card, your driver's license, just in case you still try to take off on me, because I still haven't figured out your reasoning for speeding like this. All right. You don't have to don't let somebody else's traffic stop be your reality if they had a bad experience. All right. You doing the right thing by just stopping. Now, I want to get into the video. So people have an idea of what we're talking about in here, about this pregnant woman that was handcuffed for speeding. And yes, the officer drew his weapon. Now, you got to understand this is, when you don't do these things, when you're keeping going, you got to understand that officer's mind is spinning now. Like, okay, why aren't you stopping? What did you do? Like Mike just said, it doesn't matter if you got your four ways on or not, your hazards. I'm going to start thinking about, okay, are you trying to hide something? Because we are, remember, what was it, last December, Mike, we did a video about the young Army officer that made this type of same decision, used the excuse of, oh, I'm scared, and didn't want to pull over for about a mile. And I happened to live down the road where this actually took place, and he had plenty of real estate where he could have pulled over, right? So when you don't stop like that, now in certain situations, officer is gonna draw their weapon because one, you're reckless driving, speeding, and two, you're not stopping. So right then, and I don't know, if he called out a pursuit or not on this, Mike. I don't think he did. But if you're gonna go too long and not stop, that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna get on the radio and they're gonna call out a pursuit, failure to stop, reason for pursuit, 75 and 55-mile-an-hour speed zone. And now you got all the officers in that on your shift coming to you. Right. This is why it's important to stop immediately. So let's kind of put this into context with the video so you kind of have a idea of what we're talking about here. Again, this took place a little over a week ago, back on August the 12th.
Okay. Tonight, a Florida sheriff's deputy is off the job after this harrowing moment when he pulled a gun on a pregnant woman during a traffic stop.
You make any movement, that'll be your last mistake you're going to make.
Ebony, Washington, coming to a stop here at this Bradford County gas station after Deputy Jacob Dessou tried pulling her over Friday night for speeding.
Your excuse means nothing to me right now. I don't want to hear it.
Washington explaining she was scared of stopping in the dark, but the deputy appears angry, accusing her of being, quote, shady for not stopping immediately when she heard his siren and flashing lights.
I'm just telling you why, because I don't care about why. Just shut up.
Washington's 3 children, including a 1-year-old in the SUV at the time, one of them recording the terrifying moment.
She didn't say anything.
The mother of 3 saying she partly blames herself for speeding, but is still shaken.
I was so nervous, so scared. I mean, the gun part, it was just too extreme for me.
The officer later removed Washington's handcuffs and issued her a citation for speeding. Bradford County Sheriff Gordon Smith saying his review of video of the incident shows Deputy Dessou's actions were inappropriate and inconsistent with department policy.
She explained to him, she's flashing lights to get to a lit area. Okay, but that's what I want my wife to do. That's what I want my daughter to do. That's what I want my neighbor to do if you feel unsafe.
Anyway,
all right, so what do you think about what the sheriff said, Mike?
You know what? I got no problem with what the sheriff said as far as wanting his wife to be safe. But I'm sure the sheriff should know also how it can be interpreted if you don't pull over in a obviously a reasonable time, a time frame. It's more about the time frame than it is the distance. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, if you're driving 5 miles down the road before you pull over, well, that's a red flag to an officer. Like, what are we doing here? When I pull you over, I'm already having in my mind where I want to pull you over at. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, if I want you to move, then I'll move you. Now, that being said, a lot of traffic stops when you getting ready, and you know this, Corey, just like I do, when you turn them lights on, you kind of got to get a feel of why this person ain't stopping to some degree. Now, you can't see the occupants of the vehicle at nighttime, so you don't know who's in this vehicle. They keep throwing, she's a pregnant woman. Well, you don't know what you have until she stepped out of that car, first of all. When you're just moving down the road, it could be anybody in that car driving. You don't know who it is. You see what I'm saying? But I do think that this officer, at some point when she stepped out of the car and had her hands up and things like that, I think he probably was more angry that she didn't pull over at a reasonable time. Would an officer pull his gun out? Possibly. Now, folks, what we're saying is, I'm not justifying I'm not saying that what this officer did was right or wrong. That's for their department policy to discuss.
Right. And I think what you have to look at too, at what point are you going to classify this as a felony stop? At what point do we say, okay, now this has gone from just a traffic stop to now a felony traffic stop? And what we mean by that, folks, now you're at a more of a heightened situation here. There's a reason why you're not stopping. We've gone over that certain amount of distance, and there's no policy to when you can call out a pursuit. That's up to the officer discretion. If he wanted to follow you 10, 15 miles down the road, then that's that officer's prerogative to do that. Now, nobody's really going to do that. I'm not. I usually give you, if we're on the interstate, I'll give you 2 exits. If you're not stopping in 2 exits, and that's a mile in between each exit, right? So really, you getting a mile to stop. I'm calling out a pursuit, right? Because at that point you've had plenty of time to stop and pull over. Now you're evading, right, or eluding the police, and now I'm calling out a pursuit.
You make a good point. You make a good point when you say on the highway versus on like city streets, folks, and that's a good. There's a really good clarification on that, because I can definitely see on the highway maybe a couple of miles. You see what I'm saying? Because it's very busy, long road. You know, it's a different environment on the highway than it is in city streets. Now, in my case, you know, when I patrolled city streets, if I hit them lights, it's up to me in my mind to determine, are you fleeing? Are you not stopping on purpose? Are you trying to evade? I have to process all that and try to determine that in my mind before I even get on the radio. Now, if I determine that, you know, I'm lighting you up, and we're still moving after a reasonable time that you should have pulled over on city streets, then I may not call out a pursuit yet, but I'm already on the radio letting our dispatchers know that I'm trying to make a traffic stop and you haven't stopped yet. You see what I'm saying? And keep in mind, throughout all that time, I'm thinking of all these things. Why isn't
so? Let me ask you this, Mike. Let me ask you this. What was your usual standard? Like, if they made more than, say, 3 turns and then stop, would you call out a pursuit? Or
that's a good question.
Or did they pass so many, say, gas stations, right?
Yeah.
Or a shopping center? What was your criteria?
My criteria is probably quicker than somebody, a highway patrol on the highway, because on city streets, you have a multitude of opportunities and locations to pull over. Usually, like you said, gas stations, store parking lots, or usually the city streets are well lit themselves. You see what I'm saying? So, in some cases, anyway. For me, it was really just a feel. If you pass 3 gas stations, well, then something's up with that. If you pass a big parking lot, a commercial parking lot that you could have easily pulled over, and you still rolling, that's a red flag for me. I'm thinking along the lines of, why are you not stopping? And of course, we've had plenty of incidents in my career where I'm hitting them lights and the person either, just like this, wanted a better place to stop. They wanted to determine where they were going to stop. It could have been an old lady, an elderly person, you know, who didn't know what to do, to that young person who really didn't know what to do or where to pull over and was just trying to find a place that they felt was okay to pull over. You see what I'm saying? I've also had it where they're driving at a slow speed and just simply didn't want to pull over until they got home. We've had that where you pull in your drive. I live right around the corner, so I just wanted to make it to my house first. You see what I'm saying?
And that's a big negative. Don't do that, right? You know, don't. I guess for me, every officer is not the same. And one thing you hear about us, folks, you know, Mike and I will give you our perspective on what 2 reasonable officers do. One thing we're always going to do is follow policy, hands down.
Oh yeah,
I was a field training officer, so my biggest thing was, you know, it's a judgment call when you're going to call out for that pursuit. For me, like I said, I usually gave you that mile. You're not pulling over on the side of the shoulder on that mile, on the shoulder, not in the lane of travel, but on the shoulder. Now, again, certain circumstances going to dictate there's no shoulder, and you may not have to be able to pull over, or stop in that lane of travel. Either or, you stop, you let that officer tell you where to go to. They're going to move you to a safe space, because once they activate those lights and those sirens, you're now under their safety, right? They're responsible for your safety once they let you know that they're behind you. Your safety is in their hands. All right. So, like I said, for me, I'm going to get your driver's license. Hey, let me have your ID, and then we're going to get you over to a safe space so we're both safe. All right, cool. Slowly pull up, go over it, or I'll just say, hey, go up here to the shoulder. There's a wide area off to your right. Pull off on that side right there, and we're good. All right. To take that into your own hands, because now, like we said, and real quick, we'll thank Frank, Tone, see you. Jesus loves you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're talking about a young lady down in Florida who was handcuffed and pregnant. She was doing 75 in a 55 miles speed zone. And then after this video was released, the deputy resigned. And there was no reason or no real explanation of why he resigned. Just it had to do probably because the way he handled his demeanor or whatever. But you gotta understand, when you get into these situations, that officer, again, one, we don't know what type of call he was on before he got this call, or before he encountered this woman, to make his situation alertness is a little amped up. He hadn't had a chance to calm down a little bit from whatever he was just on. And now, here we go again. Somebody else speeding 75 and 55. And now you don't want to stop. Now, again, it's always situation dictated. There are sometimes I kick myself in the rear, and I would get into a situation like this, and I didn't pull my gun out, right? I just go up to the car and, hey, let me see your driver's license registration. And, maybe I should have, because then I end up with drugs and guns. And I didn't have mine drawn. So, to say he was right or wrong for that, it's going to be that up to that officer's discretion. You can't put policy on that, telling the officer when they can and cannot pull their weapon. You don't stop.
Yeah,
that red flag.
I hear you. I hear you on that. A couple good points that you make too. Also, folks, remember this. First, when I pull somebody over, I'm getting ready to make a traffic stop. The first thing I'm putting on is my lights, right? So you see those lights behind you, you're getting ready to be pulled over. You need to pull over to the right side of the road as soon as possible and stop. Don't try to dictate where you want to stop. Let the officer dictate where you want to stop, okay? And then, if I have my lights on for a minute, but if it looks like you ain't going to pull over, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to beat my siren. It's going to be a whoop, whoop. Everybody heard that. That's a universal sound. Whoop, 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 whoop. When you hear that whoop, whoop, okay, on that siren, that's letting you know that this officer behind you is like, look, I see you got something going on. Your hazards or whatever, but you need to go ahead and pull on over. That's what that whoop, whoop means. So first you got the lights. Then I got the whoop, whoop. That's letting you know, okay, we going a little too far here. You need to go on and pull over. And then if that point you still don't pull over, then it's full on siren. Woo! Oh, yeah. Okay? Right, full on siren. Because now I need to make sure that you getting pulled over. You obviously saw the lights. You heard the whoop, whoop. Okay? And now we full-blown lights and siren. You definitely need to pull over at that point. Okay?
Right.
Tone makes a good point. She did follow calm for the most part. I'll give you that. And I think the way he spoke to her, or what he said, sounded more, I guess you could say, borderline unprofessional. You know what I'm saying? Because he was telling her to shut up and this and that, where she clearly was really just trying to give him an explanation of why she didn't stop. right or wrong, that's all she was trying to do, was explain to him why she didn't stop. But before she got to that point, he pulled his gun out. He didn't know who he was dealing with when she didn't stop. He don't know that. You see what I'm saying? He don't know who this person is or why they didn't stop. But I think he was wrong for that. That could have been handled a lot better, I think. Why he resigned and all that seems extreme to me to resign. Unless he got something else going on or something, or maybe there's something in this incident we didn't see. I don't know. But hey, he resigned. The point is, folks, you don't know what kind of officer you're going to come across. So it's important that you go ahead and pull over on the right side of the road. Don't drive 5-10 miles down the road because you want a well-lit area. Patrol cars have spotlights and all kind of lights. That's part of the training. When officers pull somebody over at nighttime, we light you up with every light we got. I'm putting spotlights on both left and right. I got my flashlight out, all of that stuff. Okay. Yeah. Technically, we'd like to pull you over in a well-lit area, but a well-lit area is not always close by. And we don't expect you to drive 5-10 miles down the road to go look for one. You see what I'm saying? For that, you could be taking us out of the city, out of our jurisdiction, or and we may be unfamiliar with the area that you end up in. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's a lot of things that come into play with that. What you say to that, Corey?
Now, I think she did well with the acronym CALM. Again, my only problem with that is just stopping immediately. If you had stopped immediately, you wouldn't it wouldn't have gone this far, right? The officer would have had no reason to escalate this situation. He eventually did calm down and de-escalated, and she ended up still getting a ticket, and still was able to leave, right? But I don't know the reason why he really resigned. Maybe he was voluntold to step down.
To me, that seems a little.
I didn't. Right. To use the language of telling her to shut up, I think, like you, I agree with you. Might have been borderline unprofessional. Have I said that? Yeah. But at the same time, I've been called worse too. So, again, for me, it always goes both ways. If I'm going to show you respect, guess what? You better be showing me some respect. You come sideways at me, guess what? I'm coming sideways right back at you. I don't play that.
No,
but
I agree.
I would not have me and my character and knowing how I am. I wouldn't have talked to her that way. More than likely, I would not have drawn my weapon. I'm not saying what he did was wrong. I wasn't there, but I've been in situations like what he had went through. And like I said earlier, there have been times I'd have kicked myself in the rear end because I didn't pull my gun out and end up getting drugs and guns out the car. You know what I mean? And there's times I pulled my gun and then, there was no reason to pull it. But again, it's always going to be that situation is going to dictate.
Yeah, and one thing they didn't mention in this particular incident was we don't know how long did she drive before she pulled over in that parking lot where she was. I don't know. How long had it been? I mean, did she actually drive 10 miles down the road? I don't know. That could make a lot of difference too. And I think in this situation, Corey, I got the feeling I probably wouldn't have drew my weapon down on her either. And I wouldn't have talked to her that way because she was not talking to the officer that way. She seemed like she was trying to be respectful. She wasn't, overboard or nothing like that. She was trying to explain why she didn't stop clearly. You know what I'm saying? So she wasn't talking to him that way. She wasn't being confrontational, at least what we saw on this video. She wasn't being confrontational or anything like that. So I didn't see any reason for this officer to have such a harsh
tone.
I hate to say hard. You know what I'm talking about. I mean,
he didn't have to have such a harsh tone with her.
Yeah.
Megan says, I don't think I would drive any longer than 1 minute to get to a well-lit area. I believe common sense would kick in and tell you that. The officer can't read your mind. Exactly. That's why it's important for you to stop. I can't read your mind, understanding what you're doing. I don't know you. I don't even know what you look like, especially if it's dark out, right? I don't know if you're trying to hide drugs in the car, hide a gun in the car. You know, as an officer, when you're not stopping immediately, these things start going through our minds because we don't want to walk up into something, right? I don't want to walk up to you and get shot, right? So, you know, yeah, I'm going to come out with my weapon drawn, right? And I can understand why that frightens her. This is why you don't put yourselves in that situation, folks, is really the bottom line, right? You see those lights come on, stop. Let the officer give you directions on where to go from that point, right? Like Megan said, you know, we can't read your mind because now you're going to be really distraught now because now you don't understand why that officer is now pulling, you know, his weapon out on you for just a traffic stop, a speeding violation, right? It's more to it than just that.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I agree. I mean, look, folks, if you make sure you remember what we said when we talk about it's the lights first, then you when you hear that whoop whoop, that's letting you know, okay. But once you hear both lights and full siren, you better pull over. Don't try to wait. Don't try to keep driving after. I think that's a good rule of thumb. Don't you think, Corey? If you get past the whoop whoop, then you need to pull over. It don't matter where you are. You need to pull over to the right-hand side of that road and you need to stop. Okay?
Right.
Period.
Right.
You could be in, I don't care if you out on a country road and it's pitch black. Okay. If you hear that full siren, you don't know what kind of officer you are going to get. Okay. You don't know what kind of officer or what that officer is going to perceive by you not stopping. That's what you can't control. Just like the officer can't control who we're getting ready to stop. We can't see who's driving because it's dark. The one thing an officer likes to be able to control is the location where you end up stopping. I can tell you that. When I made traffic stops, it was very common. I already formulated in my head the location where I think you are going to pull over, even before I hit them lights. But once I hit them lights, I'm hitting them lights because you are already getting ready to be in an area where I want you to stop. And at that point, like you said, again, we said this over and over again, if you get to a location that we feel is unsafe, meaning the officer feels is unsafe, that officer will direct you to move and when to move and how to move. Okay? Mm-hmm. So don't take it upon yourself. Don't get past the whoop whoop.
and one last thing on that too, another reason why that's so important, because you hear a lot about officers getting ambushed, right? That's another thought process that could be going through their mind. Okay, why aren't they stopping? Could they be leading me to an ambush, right? You're not stopping. You're making these turns. You may be taking them off the road to a side road. You know, these are things I'm thinking about. Like I always knew when somebody was running from me, if I was on a particular part of the interstate, it was only about maybe a 4-mile stretch of interstate. It was just a small stretch of interstate linking to the two major 64 and 264. And I always knew if they jumped off at this one particular exit, they were running from me because there was nowhere for them to go but back into an industrial area. So one night I was working midnight shift and I got this guy speeding. I think he might have been doing like 78 in a 60 or whatever. I said, okay. Yeah. Not well for me, it's full blown. Woo! So we going. we lighted up. And so what was crazy, he was in the left lane. It was a three lane highway. interstate. So he starts off in the left lane, and then as soon as he starts making his transit over to the far right lane, I knew exactly what he was getting ready to do. He was running from me, right? He gets off the exit ramp, gets down to the bottom, and then goes in this particular part of the interstate, or when you get off on this road, you go to the right, you go back to the industrial area, as I was saying, where there's nothing but backside roads back there, right? So I'm like, crap. Now the hair on your head, in the back of your neck starts standing up. Like, all right, what's going on? So he turns down a particular road. It was no lights back there, right? And it dead ends, right? So I'm like, right. Yes, Mom, I was cursing. I'm like, crap, man.
Hey, especially when they turn their lights off.
Right. So we get back up into this cut in this back alley. And it's just me and him, and then come find out he was a wanted dude, gangbanger. I'm like, man, what the? And so that's why it's important to stop right away, because once you start going back and you taking these roads, and it happens so quick, folks. I ain't even get the chance to call out a pursuit, because we hit that man and we was gone. But then, yeah, obviously, I ended up getting the city guys to come back me up. Because my shift partner was in another city. But this is how fast it goes. This is why it's important. Look, don't listen to what your other friends tell you. They've had, she was saying her husband was telling her, no, not to stop. Go to a well-lit area. No, you stop. I know your husband looking out for you and want you to be safe, and so do we. That's why it's important to stop. Had she just did that, it wouldn't have gotten to this point.
No, I agree. You definitely stop. But, I do understand why people are given that advice by some people when they say pull over in the well-lit area. I do, and don't get us wrong, folks. We understand that, and we want you to be safe just like we want us to be safe. You know what I'm saying? But like I say, don't get past the whoop whoop. If you get past that, then you didn't went too far. You know what I'm saying? And let the officer dictate where you're going to stop. Don't take that upon yourself to say, oh, I see those lights and siren behind me, but I'm not going to pull over here because I don't feel safe. I'm going to keep going until I find some place where I feel safe. You don't want to do that. You safe as long as I got them lights behind you. When I got them lights and siren behind you, you safe right at the gate, because I'm the officer that's pulling you over, and I definitely don't want you to get hit by a car or anything like that. You see what I'm saying? Now we can get into the whole what happens if you hear incidents where people are pretending to be police officers or imitating police officers, pulling people over. You do hear about incidents like that. And I think that's where that advice came from, partly was because of those incidents. They said, keep driving to a well-lit area. You know what I'm saying? Folks, I can tell you this too. If you ever get into a situation like that, when we made stops, when I was an officer, our dispatch knew before we even pulled somebody over. They knew where we were, who we were, where we were stopped. They knew the license plate of the car that I was stopping, because that's part of what I give out even before you come to a stop. Okay. You can easily call your police department on your quick cell phone, which you have your local police department on speed dial, and say, hey, I'm being pulled over. I just want to make sure this is a legit officer and everything. You see what I'm saying? And they should be able to tell you, yeah, we got an officer in that area who's just going on the stop. Do you have a blue Accord or whatever it is? You know what I'm saying? Or something like that. That's the one way you could try to do something like that. We're not telling you not to be careful. You always be careful. You always be vigilant as far as being comfortable with who's pulling you over. Officers who pull you over, we're going to have a uniform on, lights and siren in a patrol car. Can an officer in plain clothes, unmarked car pull you over? Technically, yeah, but that's not good practice, because there's always an argument of, do you recognize that person and that car as a police officer? You see what I'm saying? Yeah, we've seen, Corey, you and I both seen plainclothes officers pulling people over before. Okay. But in the department I worked in anyway, a lot of our plainclothes guys would always call a patrol officer over in a marked patrol car to pull somebody over if they needed to. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah,
just
that
be
was
aware of stuff like that and pull over. Don't get past the whoop whoop. Don't get past that, folks.
All right, y'all, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button for us and get this video out. Remember to always stay calm, comply, answer questions, listen, and move on. All right, so we're talking about a pregnant lady down in Florida. Incident happened back on August 12th, about a little over a week ago. Speeding 75 in a 55 mile per hour speed zone, and she was pulled over and handcuffed and at gunpoint, and the situation kind of got out of hand. The officer, to a certain extent, with his language, was borderline unprofessional, in our opinion. So the lesson of this show here is just to stop. We know you want to get to a well lit area yourself, but like one of our viewers said, Megan said, the officer can't read your mind. So the best thing you can do right now is just stop and allow that officer to put you in the right position. We're going to transition on. Mike got another topic he wants to hit on real quick before we close out tonight. But I want to answer Jesus Loves You question. He had a question from last week's show where we were talking about do you have the right to refuse to sign for a ticket? And to answer your question, Jesus Loves You. Yeah, he could have given them a warning, but again, it just really depended on what type of enforcement they were doing, what the directions were from their supervisor. If they wanted to do the enforcement and nobody was getting a warning, then yeah, obviously they would have to have gotten the ticket. But typically on any other night, if they weren't doing a high vis enforcement, he probably could have just, in his discretion, if he wanted to, just to have given them a warning and let them go. What say you, Mike?
Yeah, I say the same thing. And keep in mind, folks, everybody wants a warning. Everybody wants a warning. Okay. We can't just give warnings all the time. And like Corey was saying, if you're doing special enforcement in an area, that usually means a ticket. Means we're doing special enforcement in this area because we've had a problem in this area. That way, usually on something like that, that takes sometimes it takes the discretion away from the officer to where we now just want to write tickets. The supervisors will usually say that I want tickets in this area right here. Okay, that lets us know that we don't have the option of giving you a warning at this point. You know what I'm saying? But like you say, usually it is the officer's discretion. But whether you get a ticket or a warning, that's completely up to the officer. It's got nothing to do with you. When I gave somebody a warning, it really was a random thing for me, whether I gave them a warning or a ticket. I might not have enough tickets for in that shift. Like, man, I've been giving all these warnings. I need to give me a couple of tickets, and you just might be the one to get a ticket. You see what I'm saying? It was. What about you, Corey? Was it random whether you gave a warning or a ticket?
It depends. If we're out doing enforcement, like I would do a lot of speeding enforcements or DUI enforcements. There was no warnings in that. Because that's what you're out there to do enforcement, whether it be speed or DUI. I always like doing DUIs the most. But there was no, hey, I'm gonna let you. Now at that point, it's like you had to justify why you're out there, right? And that's another whole separate topic. But you really need to justify why you're out there. If you're not producing, you're not going to get these assignments. And if you're not producing, you're not going to get the assignments. You're not going to get the funding to do these, to get paid to do this type of enforcement. So you want to you want to do your job when you're out there.
Yeah, so you gave tickets on your wedding days.
Yeah.
Yeah, comment that Stacy made here.
Yeah.
Good question, Tom. Good question. Tone says our officers on a quota system. Good question, Tone. No. I'm pretty sure it's like this cross country though, Corey. But anyway, out in California, it's against the law to have a quota system. Okay.
Yeah, same here.
Now, that being said, Tone, what we had was what you would call shift expectations. You got however many officers you got on your shift, and you all out there on patrol. What you want to do is you want to make sure you are within that average of the shift of the other officers in your shift as far as the amount of contacts you make, as far as the amount of tickets you have or whatever it is. So there's no quota. They're not going to tell us you got to go out and write 12 tickets today. Right. You got to have 12 tickets today. Then you ain't going to hear that. But you will if you are below the average of the shift in writing tickets and things like that. That will look bad on the officer. It'll look bad on your eval when you get your evaluation. You don't want to be too low on contacts or on tickets or anything like that. So there's no quota, but they don't want you to go out there for 10 hours to do nothing either. You got to show, like Corey, you said this a lot of the time, you got to show something for that 10 hours you worked on that street. So yeah, if you come at for 10 hours and you ain't got nothing, okay, then they gonna wonder what you been doing for 10 hours, right?
Yeah. You have to justify that 40 hours. You have to justify that 40-hour work week. And it was same for us too, Mike. That we had no quota. It was against the law. They cannot tell you have to go out and write this amount of tickets. But like we also had a daily average and that was collective of all the troopers, and say, okay, well, you should averagely this how many tickets a day you should write. And as long as you stay within those parameters, you kept the supervisors off you. And that also encompasses to, all the other stuff you do too. So as long as you're writing, you're good. Because and the same thing for us too, that reflected your evaluations. Like you wouldn't get the promotions, you wouldn't get the schools if you're not producing. You don't ask for nothing. You're not going to get. Now you're going to get the supervisor involved with you. You're going to make the supervisor have to come out from behind that desk and get in the car with you and ride with you and see why you're not writing tickets.
Why you ain't producing? Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there's no quota system, and I'm pretty confident saying that's pretty much majority of the country is like that. You just can't do it. But if you're not producing, believe you me, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah, if all the other officers on your shift is writing 10 tickets, you better not show up with 2. Right. Okay. Right. You better be somewhere in that range somewhere. You don't want to, I should say, you don't want to habitually be that much lower than the average. You see what I'm saying? That's all. So there's no quota, but there is an expectation. There is an expectation.
Sure. That's for sure. All right, what you got real quick, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know if we got enough time to hit that other one right now. We can always talk about that next week. What you think?
All right. That's fine. We can do it next for another time.
Yeah, folks, sorry about that. We just want to talk about the importance of why officers identify who they're dealing with and why that's can be significant. But we could probably hit on that next week. It's always something new coming up. But we had a good show this time. You guys feel free to answer any questions, make any comments. Get your questions on YouTube. We will try to answer those questions, either typing it on the spot or we'll answer them live on the next show. You know what I'm saying? We love your comments. We love you guys showing up to hear what we got to say. Stacy, Tone, Jesus loves you. Megan, thanks for joining us, you guys. Got anything, Corey?
No. Hey, thank you for joining us tonight. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button for us. Please share this out and talk to your family members about this because, at the end of the day, we want everybody to be safe, the officer and the citizens to be safe on traffic stops. And that's the importance behind it. So, again, if you find value in this, tell us what you like down below. If you have a topic that you would like Mike and us to talk about, hit us up. We'll get it on the show. Or if you'd like to join us on the show and ask us whatever your questions are about policing, we'd love to have you on the show. So hit us up. It's not a problem. I send you the link. You log on to it. And bam, you're on the show with us. So hey, yes, just hit us up anytime. So we thank you all again. We love y'all. Be safe. Have a great and blessed weekend, and we will see y'all next week.
Peace out.